Hey YouTube, welcome back. Today we're going to change a fuel filter on a 2011 Ford F350 6.7 diesel. We're going to start with the lower fuel filter. It's located just under the truck on the driver's side frame rail right behind the transfer case. This is it here. Step one would be to remove this electrical connector. This electrical connector is a water sensor connector. Sometimes they can have some dirt and stuff in them and be a little tough to get off. If so, just give them a little tap like this and knock the dirt out of them. And you can push these in towards it, push the tab over and slide it out like that. Now if this breaks in half, sometimes this can snap in half. You can actually pop them back together usually. But if you're careful, it'll come off like that. Just tuck this up out of the way. Now what we want to do is remove the lower bowl here. Now this here with the yellow end on it is your water drain. I don't like to drain the water out when I'm changing the fuel filter because I like to see what's in there. And also I found on occasion those O-rings tend to leak afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that one in. And now I'm going to remove the lower fuel filter housing. So to do this, we need a 32 millimeter socket, which is going to go on the bottom here. But sometimes you'll find that these housings are super tight, and if you push too hard on this socket, you'll actually crack the housing, and then you're out of luck. So what I like to do is get a band wrench like this. These things are pretty common everywhere. You can use the strap wrenches too. They look like an old fan belt. So I put the band wrench on there, making sure that I don't catch any of the sensors and stuff. And I just want to apply some pressure with the band wrench. Not a lot, but I'm going to assist this to come loose. So I've got some pressure on that a little bit, not enough to damage anything. And then I'm going to grab my other ratchet with a 32 millimeter on it, and we're just going to apply pressure together. Firm pressure until it starts to come counterclockwise. You can hear how tight this one is, but we're in good shape now. So we've cracked it free. I'm going to take my band wrench off. Don't need that anymore. We're going to lower this housing off now. What we're hearing here is that O-ring that seals it is actually really dry. All right, we've got a drain bucket underneath. I'm going to lower this. Now wear some gloves. There's usually a fair amount of fuel in here. There it is. Just going to tip it over. Okay. And we'll pull the filter out of the housing. Put it in the drain bin. Now we can have a look inside here and just see how bad it really was. In this case, this one's in pretty good shape. So I get some brake clean. I like this Ford stuff. I'm gonna rinse this out, make sure there's no grit or anything in there. If you have a blowgun, you can blow it out afterwards. I'm just going to set this aside here. Now we need to change this O-ring up here. That's the one that was making all that noise. If you get the Ford fuel filter kit, they come with a new O-ring. Always change the O-ring. I know it's kind of a pain sometimes and feels like it's unnecessary, but it's worth it. So you get your new O-ring. To get the old one out, you use a pick tool like this. You just go up on the side, slip it underneath that O-ring, and pull it down. There it is. New O-ring goes up into place. Now, what we can do is get the fuel filter lower bowl that we have. Make sure it's clean and dry like this one is. I'll show you a couple things. This point right here is actually a stop. So when this lower housing is threaded in all the way, the stop hits against this. If you over tighten it, it'll actually break this stop off and potentially crack the filter housing, causing a suction leak or an air leak on your fuel side, on the low side, and it'll actually cause your truck to have low fuel pressure and not run at all or run very poorly. So we've got this clean. The reason we cleaned and dried this, you can see inside of here, there's a little lip about just over a 1/4 inch down. That's where the O-ring sits. Now here's a good trick. You can use caliper slide grease or silicone grease. I've got this kind here. Works pretty good, just a synthetic dielectric grease. So I put a little bit of that. And this is an excellent trick. So I put a little bit on the edge of the lower bowl, around the edge there, right where the O-ring's going to go. I don't go globs and globs of it, just a thin smear. You could use actually some Vaseline if you wanted. I like to use the caliper slide grease because it doesn't affect the rubber at all. It won't break the rubber down. So that's got a little bit of lube on it now. We'll take the new fuel filter. This is the part that snaps into the bowl at the bottom. This goes up into the housing, so you can just go ahead and take the fuel filter and tuck it up into place just like that. Now we're going to put the bowl back on. And now that we've got this lubed up with a little bit of that grease, you can almost put this bowl on entirely by hand. Now, as you're rotating it, you'll feel it stop up against that stop I showed you. You don't want to go past that. So you want to just bring it up gently, and that's why the lube is critical, because you can actually feel it when it gets there. If you don't lube it, you can't feel that stop. Right there, it just stopped. It's in the exact orientation that it was. If you've tightened this too far and this is pointing over here now, or not all the way over, you know that something's happened. You got to take it back off. So that's snug. It's up against the stop. We want to put this back on. If you want, if this is crusty or something, you can put some silicone spray right in the electrical connector. Put that on until you hear the audible click. And that's the lower housing done. That's all you need to do down here. So we'll go ahead up top and have a look at the top side. All right, now this is the top fuel filter housing. And the top fuel filter, this is the kit we're using. We're using a Ford kit FD4615. That's a kit there. It's got the upper and the lower filter in it and that O-ring. So we need to change this upper one. Now on the early models like this 2011, they have a little 7mm pinch bolt here that you got to loosen off first. So just go ahead and back that off. Now when we're doing fuel filters on the diesels, cleanliness is key, even though this one's a little bit dirty on the top side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with some brake clean just to rinse off any dust and stuff that might be near those lines or connectors. You can hit it with a blowgun if you need to. So let's give it a little rinse first. It's not necessary, but it's nice to keep it clean. We don't want any dirt getting in there. Okay, so we've got them rinsed off. Now, this fuel filter here Has a connector here and a connector here and another one here. So we'll start with the green one to get it out of the way. If you put your fingers underneath of it, you can push up and just wiggle on the green tab, kind of squeezing them in towards the center a little bit. And the green tab will pop up like that. Once you get the green tab popped up, you can just pull this off like this and just tip it out of the way. Now, the second thing we got to do is get at the second one. So these can also be a little bit sticky, so you can give them a little bit of a wiggle. There's another hose under here, and I've seen these actually get broken off before if you're not careful. So push them in, and on this connector that's at the filter itself, it's got two little white tabs here that you're going to squeeze. And you can push in, squeeze the tabs firmly, and then you can wiggle that off like so. Now, if that's super jammed or something and you're having a lot of trouble with it, you might want to take this connection off here just so you have a little more access. So how this one works, it's got a little lock tab on it, this yellow one here. So you can reach down from the top and wiggle and pull that little lock tab up like that. Then we push in again, just hold some pressure in, and we want to push down right here with your thumb. So sometimes that can be tight too. So you give it a little push and a little wiggle, and that one will pull off like that. And you can tuck that out of the way too. And that just gives you a little more wiggle room in here if you're having some issues with this one. Now, be careful with that lower hose. Like I said before, they're pretty brittle. So we're going to go ahead and pull that one off now. Like so. Now the fuel filter will come out. You just rotate it clockwise or counterclockwise and lift up like that. You can see on the bottom right here, there's a little tab. That's kind of where it orientates and rotates in. The new one we have, same tab on the bottom, same configuration. We're going to slip it back in with the lines facing sort of towards the steering wheel area, and we're just going to wiggle it down in here. Now, this one is actually a bit snug as well. So we can let off that 7mm a little more to give us a little more room. The other thing you can do if you want, put a little bit of that caliper grease on the outside of the filter housing, like just a little thin bead of it. Like that. Not too much, just enough to help with the friction. There we go. So we're going to tuck that one back in, and as we're rotating it, we're pushing it down. You can see this is kind of facing this way, and as I turn it, that little tab on the bottom, I turn it clockwise and push down at the same time. When it gets in the right spot, it'll kind of pull itself into position, orientating it back to where it was to begin with. So now we're going to put this one back in, put it in until we hear the audible click. And then the outside one can go back in. And just make sure it's kind of tough sometimes, it won't be square, so get it on there. It'll click into place. Make sure you push the lock back in. Done. Now the front one's going to go in, same thing. Get it in there square, and then push the lock tab back down. You can tell that it's on there when it won't come off. There it is, that's done. So now all we need to do on this diesel is cycle the key once or twice, fire it up, and away it goes. These ones are pretty good for not having airlocks, so you shouldn't have any issues. Now, if you have trouble after changing the fuel filters and it won't start, maybe it even displays low fuel pressure in the dash or something, you may need to cycle the key a couple of more times. Sometimes some of the earlier ones would make a funny noise, almost like a cavitation noise. After changing the fuel filter, that tends to go away. But if you do have low fuel pressure displayed in the dash and you're having a heck of a time getting it going, go back down and double check that lower fuel filter housing. Make sure it's not cracked. Make sure that it's seated properly with that O-ring and the grease up in there. Now the grease that you put on there, obviously you don't want to get it in the fuel system. It's just up in the O-ring area and it stays out of the fuel system. But I've seen some guys, you know, some oil change guys change the filters on the diesels and then they won't start afterwards. And 9 times out of 10, it's that lower fuel filter housing not sealing properly. So there it is. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Have a great day.